Welcome to another episode of How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. Today we have a fun one because Wes Clark is with me to talk about his film, How to Start a Cult in five easy steps?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. I was able to watch the film today. Fantastic film. You should go check it out. I'll leave links in the description down below or in the comments. Look for it down there. And pleasure to have you, Wes. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it. Chatting up.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Every time I talk to another filmmaker, it's always really good to share information and talk about what's how you create, what are some of your processes that you do. So we'll get into all of that kind of stuff. If anybody has any questions for Wes, just leave your questions down in the comments. And he or I will jump back in and respond to you if you have those questions. So we are going to get into the film. So in order to do that, I want to show a clip of the film. So let me show the trailer from the film, Wes's film, and then we'll jump into a discussion. I'll talk a little bit about no vacancy and disclosure as well. And we'll talk about what it's like to make films, because we all love this process, and hopefully as a viewer, you love it too. So let me go ahead and bring this up. Anything you want to set the stage for before I bring up the trailer?
No, it's a dark comedy. So the trailer's a little bit more thriller, but there's definitely humor when you actually watch it. But
absolutely,
I'll let it speak for itself.
Perfect. So let me add this to the stage and we'll play it right now.
You're not special. You never will be. You're just a dumb kid.
Like, it feels like I'm just another loser in a world full of losers. I mean, some people are worse off than I am, even.
Oh, much worse.
I probably could do something to help those people. I bet I could start my own religion.
What you're describing is a cult.
Nah, a religion like yours.
How many failures in the world do you know? Well, there's millions of them. And they are all praying for someone to show up and give them the answers to life. I am your light amongst the dark. Who among you will join me?
We are with you. We are with you. We are with you. What are you looking at? What do you want? We are with you. We are with you. We are with you.
I loved him before he invented this persona of his. I loved him when he was poor and helpless and had no prospects at all.
Love no one but me.
Without me, you are nothing. Sense my presence washing over you. Hit me! When I give you an order, you listen to me! Get up!
Feel my brilliance protecting you.
Awesome. Very cool trailer. Let me shut off the rest of this is playing now in the background. So Wes, tell me a little bit before we dive into the movie itself. Tell me about what your role was in this film.
Yeah, of course. So I wrote it, I directed it, I produced it, I edited it. Most things. I mean, as you know, indie film, right? So yeah. you wear a lot of hats. The one thing I will say I definitely did not do is touch a camera. I'm camera illiterate. And I work with I work with a great cinematographer, David Newbert, and he shot Willy's Wonderland, Boomtown. This game's called Murder, all kinds of movies. So he does really terrific work. That's why it looks so nice. Not my doing.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, because it's a really good film. People should definitely check it out. It deals with a lot of complex subjects that I want to ask you about here in a minute, and navigates it really well. So I thought that was awesome. I come from a writing background, so for me, like the storytelling aspects of things, I am like you. Technically speaking, I can go, I would love for it to look like this, but I as far as the rest of the, one of our gaffers asked us on the last film we did, Disclosure. He asked us, what kind of temperature are we going to film at? And we're like, dude, I don't know. We're coming from a writing background. Help us figure it out. Right. And he was awesome. So shout out to Steve, because he was really cool in helping us out with that. How did you get a start in filmmaking? Tell me about when this started for you. Like, how did this come about? What made you want to make films? All that stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. So I was going to be a lawyer. That was what I was going to do. Both my parents are very professional oriented. And then my father told me that he would kill me if I became a lawyer. He was a lawyer. He hated it. And so he was very serious. He's like, do not become a lawyer. Do what you love. Do something and, make it work for you. So that's what I did. I went to college at Davidson College, did not go to film school. I wanted to drop out multiple times. My girlfriend essentially was the reason I didn't. So I got a degree, but I did graduate a little early. And in the time between graduating and then actually walking across the stage, I was like, hey, well, now I graduated, I got to make a movie. I got to do something. I was really, really fortunate to meet some mentors of mine who I've now spoken with a whole bunch in my life. So Dean Israelite, he did Power Rangers, $120 million movie. Andrew Strosky, he did Manhunt on Netflix. I met a couple people, DJ Caruso, he did the Triple X movies. And so all of these people who I kind of met along the way randomly or cold emailed and then would hop on a Zoom call with or something, they were all pretty direct. They were like, hey, if you want to do it, you do it. There's no waiting to do it. There's no asking you to do it. There's none of that. And so I wrote a bunch of emails out to people who were executive producers on other movies, got responses shockingly at 23, at 22 at that point, actually. And then went to LA and met with them and then got some funding, got a little chunk of change and made the first movie right after graduating. So filmmaking for me was not something that was like lifelong dream. I really not until I got to college that's what I wanted to do. But I always loved movies. I was a huge cinephile. I would sneak out of the house. I had no friends growing up. And I would go to the movies alone, like late at night, and just like watch, quite frankly, like the same movie 5 times over until the next one came out. And then I'd watch that one until the next thing. And so, yeah.
And this is a feature, which is like a feat unto itself to make a feature in the modern day is awesome. But you did some films before that, right? You had some shorts you did before that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did 2 shorts. I got 2 grants when I was in college. Both of them funded 2 different shorts. So the first one was terrible. My father passed away, and so I made something about him that I'd never made anything. It was terrible. And then I made another one, a little bit more money, like $5K was the grant size, and I made it called Casting Dad with Philip Botello. He's not a famous actor or anything, but he's a great actor. He's been in a bunch of things. And flew him out from LA, like did that whole thing. Like, how do you house an actor? How do you whatever? How do you schedule it? And that one got sold to Prevo Streaming, which is like a short film streaming service.
Cool.
And so that was the first time that I could demonstrate to people, hey, I can make something on a camera that like looks and sounds and feels right. And that, that was a good experience because I had to work with a composer who like was actually like making music and an editor, and very good lessons. Making a short is helpful for me financially, not helpful in any way, but that's fine. It helps you kind of get to the next thing.
That's awesome. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about where does the idea for how to start a cult in 5 easy steps, where does the idea come from for you?
Love that question. Okay, so for people who know, who are young, so I'm 24. Okay, when I wrote it, I was 22. If you are on the internet and you have very few friends, I was bullied like my whole childhood. I like didn't have a lot of friends. I was nerdy, and so like if you're like me and you feel a little bit secluded from people, you go to the internet and you go to YouTube in the modern age, and there's all these very predatory people online who give all kinds of self-help nonsense. And a lot of people jump to Andrew Tate. That's a great comparison, but there's other ones. I never fell down that hole, but I would see it all the time. And I just remember this feeling of like, I was smart enough to reject it. I always did very well in school. I was very aware at a young age of just life and business. And like, I was always I had my head on my shoulders. I always kind of knew like I would be okay and I could handle myself. And so I would see these things and be like, that guy is crazy. Like, do not by any stretch of the imagination fall for that. But people do. And so, you know, as a young guy, and I'm trying to think, all right, what should I make the movie about? I wanted to make sure I would speak to people my age. Because there's plenty of directors who are 50 making movies about 50-year-olds. And I think that that's great. And like, it speaks to them, you know, divorce and my issue with kids and whatever. But I don't have kids. I'm not divorced. Like, I don't want to talk about that stuff. I want to talk about online culture and what it means to be a young man in 2025. And so that's really where it came from. And then, quite frankly, the next thing I thought of before I ever wrote anything was the title. I was thinking, wow, this is a cult. And I love religion. I've read the Quran. I've read the Bible cover to cover. I've read about Taoism, Buddhism. I mean, quite frankly, all of it. I devour that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking to myself, like, you know, we talk about Christianity being religion, makes sense. But like, I'm an Eagles fan. I'm from Philadelphia. I think being an Eagles fan is pretty culty. It's a religion. There's a place to worship. It's called the Link. We have theme songs. We have like attire you're supposed to wear. Like, how that isn't a cult, I don't know. And you can stretch that out to the nth degree. I mean, you get to a point where, you know, politics, obviously that's easy, low hanging fruit. But even people who are diehard, you know, Tarantino fans, right? Like, there's a level of just like culty prayer to figureheads that exist today. And that's what I wanted to make it about. So that's where that came from. I mean, it just, all these ideas just, you know, spiraling and compacting into one.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And one of the things I've often thought about is like, if there were a civilization, you know, 10,000 years from now that was doing an archaeological dig, like around the areas where we live, they would be like, especially in the 2010s era, they would be like, oh, these people came to worship the Avengers in these seats that they came to, right? And they paid money and they watched the Avengers. It's kind of an interesting like take on it, because we always assume that people do behave in a certain way. So let me ask you this question. Fascinating topic. Love that you took it from internet culture. The Andrew Tate reference is fantastic. So you see that this is happening to people around you, that they are susceptible to online culture, right? How do you go from that idea and then turning it into a screenplay? Like, how do you come up with like, well, because I would say one of the things that I really liked about your film is that the character arcs are really strong. Like, every single character has a really compelling character arc. They go through an emotional stage that is compelling. And even the secondary characters, right? Like, all the people who are attracted to the cult have an arc that they go through. So how do you turn this concept into an actual screenplay?
Great question. So every writer has their own view on how they kind of get things done. It obviously starts from a foundation of reading every screenwriting book, you know, Save the Cat and whatnot. And, you know, that's something that you have to do, quite frankly. That being said, I have a firm policy that no one knows what they're talking about. And so, especially now that I've done one movie and I have a second coming out next year, and like, now that I'm getting these offers to work with this bigger producer who he wants to do a $50 million movie, and this guy wants me to write a script, and you know, that's gonna be like a 10 million, but we have to work with this production company maybe. And then you get notes from these people, and they obliterate it. They take massive crap on it. What I realize is like, they don't know anything. I don't care how long they've been in the business. I mean, the fact that like, I don't know, Miss Marvel lost like $250 million. Like, you know, a bunch of people thought that was a great idea. No, it wasn't. So, you know, I think that the reality is like, you're going to have a voice and you just do it. And you rely on the lessons you've learned from reading about it, learning structure. You know, I do note cards, right? So you write out all the note cards, all the scenes. And then for me, the biggest step is once you write it, because to be honest with you, I probably wrote not the version that was made, but I probably wrote the first draft in about 7 days, maybe.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, I write very quickly. So that's never really been an issue. But what really helps is then I write down 50 questions or whatever it is, right? It's just like, hey, does this character, but I literally write it down like, does this character have a character arc And I write that for every single one. So there's 10 questions, right? 10 characters.
Mhm.
But I write out every question I could possibly ask to make it a good script. And then I authentically check it. I think so many people, oh, does it have a beginning, middle, and end? And they go, yeah, it has a bit. Like, and they don't check. Like they're lazy and they don't do it. It's like, why spend all this time writing the thing that you might make, but then not spend the extra little amount of time to make sure that it's right, that it actually looks. So yeah, you just got to spend the time. You got to ask yourself authentically and genuinely, does this make sense? Does this work? Does XYZ happen at the right time, at the right moment? You know, and then budget restraints and messing up on the day will affect it, but you got to start with the story. If it doesn't, you know, you being a screenwriter, you know, like if it doesn't work on the page, good luck. I mean, yeah, like,
yeah, that's good. That's really good. So this question is both a little bit of a writing question, a little bit of a directing question. One of the things that there was a great video that came out, and it was called Haptic. Well, this is not the title, but it was Haptic versus Optic, and the difference between each, and why so many films have been losing the haptic feel, which is almost like a full body feeling type of a situation, as opposed to just becoming an optic thing. And I thought it was a great video. I always want to like refer people to it, and I always forget the title of it. It's something like, why do modern movies don't like work as well as some of the movies we've seen in the past. And what he does is he breaks down films based on how real they feel and what makes them feel real to us. And this is something that I've been talking about from more of a storytelling perspective than a visual perspective, but the two tie in together. And so the way that I've always said it, because there's a book behind me somewhere by Leo Segre. I'm pronouncing that name totally wrong, so comments, roast me if you want to. I've been roasted about it in the past, so roast me again. But it's a book about stage writing, and it talks a lot about the shared human experience, and it calls that the premise, right? And the premise has to be something that people will gravitate towards because it is essentially, you can say it one of two ways. If you don't believe in objective truth, then you can say that it is a subjective truth that a lot of people experience, or you could just call it an objective truth. But it is so, like, for example, ruthlessness is its own demise, right? Being too ruthless will cause your own personal demise, and whatever that looks like. Things like that. And so the way that I've said that is, to me, that is the shared human experience. If I'm going to put something on a page and then put it on the screen, I have to be assured that it is a shared human experience that a large majority of people will have experienced in their own life, or else I'm not resonating with anybody. Now, I'm not saying you can't make niche films for people who have a very limited experience, and then that's the thing. But one of the things that popped out at me when you said, nobody really knows what's going to succeed, I do feel like there's a certain part of what's being released that has lost that idea, that has lost that, like, hey, is this and what you described when you started describing, this was the idea I came up with, and then this is what I wanted to film. What you described was, I have had a shared experience with other people, which is, there are these internet gurus out there that are going to tell me how to live, and they're clearly shysters, and they're clearly like not actually telling me the truth, but it's something that people are falling into. So I guess the question I have for you is, when it comes to that shared human experience, how do you dial that in? How do you dial in a shared human experience from your standpoint?
It's a good question. It's really hard. I think when you're writing in a room, right, alone, it's unbelievably difficult to imagine what the audience is going to say. Funny enough, I tend to fall into the column of Steve Jobs, who once said, like, the people don't know what they want until I make it for them. And so I just think that if you're a rational person who lives a relatively normal life, likely if it's relating to you and it means something to you, it's probably going to mean something to someone else.
Yeah.
That I don't personally have like this super wacky style or anything. And I know some creators like Wes Anderson, right? Like he has kind of a unique perspective, right? And obviously that's captured a lot of attention, but it could have been that like didn't, right? It's possible he could have started like that and just did not resonate with people. I'm fortunate where I have a very, normal but expressive and a little bit, out there shot list and kind of how I tell the story. But the actual topics are, unbelievably common. I went to an all boys school growing up from age 0 to 18, like literally right when I was born, I went. And, I was around guys my entire life up until I went to college. And so I know what it's like to be in a room full of dudes and like what they're thinking and what's going on in their lives and like what they're struggling with. And unlike a lot of schools, like we would talk about like male issues because we don't have girls there. So like not super important to talk about it. And so we would talk about, suicide and stuff. And so I know what it's like to struggle with those things and be around people who are. So I don't know. I tend to think like if it's authentic to me, it's going to be authentic to someone else. And that can be hard sometimes, like not falling for, well, this is a super cool idea, but I don't really care. Like I care about it, but not really. I care about it. It's cool. Yeah. Like that's a problem. You can't just be like, it's sick, so I'm going to do it.
Right.
This matters to me and it's going to matter to them. Yeah. And, I brought in again, so I have 2 films now. So the next film deals with followers online and having a following. And these 2 people, they go into a psychic mansion and they get terrorized and maybe someone dies, maybe not. I'm not going to say, but maybe multiple people die. Maybe everyone dies. But regardless, like the idea is that they have all these followers on their screen who like are helping them out, giving them the lifestyle they want. It's flashy and glam. And then the second that they're cut off from the internet, it's fake, right? They can't help them. Right? Literally, they can't literally help them escape. They can't literally get them out of this situation. They actually have to rely on each other and themselves to do it. And I think that as long as these are topics that people care about, right, it's going to relate. There's no way to not.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I was, you and I were talking before we started recording, and I was complaining a little bit about what really becomes popular on YouTube specifically. And I think that the distinction that you just made there is actually apropos to that comment I was making, because I think a lot of what makes it big on YouTube, from a movie standpoint, is that idea that, this is just sick. It's just sick, dude. Let's just film that because it's sick. And the reason for it is because I think that in order for you to retain the audience, there's a lot of people that would want to watch a lot of movies that are on YouTube, but it's almost kind of like the level of distraction that you can invest in is, it's almost like it's too tempting, right? It's like, but if I don't have to invest in that story if I watch it somewhere else. I can just kind of like get the dopamine hit that I want and then move on, as opposed to investing in something that's really creative. And that's just my own personal old man thing of saying, okay. So I'm sure that the younger people are like, dude, that's so stupid. We'll pay attention. And I'm like, no, I'm an old man.
Yeah, but what I'll say about this is I have 2 thoughts on that. And I think these 2 points matter, is that when I started out, I was with a company called Moving Picture Institute. They gave me a little bit of a start, like being a PA on sets and different things. MPI, it's a great company. And so there was a lady named Hannah, and so she gave us lessons every summer and like summer series of how to act properly, send that email, talk to these people. This is how you present yourself, whatever, like all kinds of filmmaking stuff. And one thing she said is like, if you're set out to be famous in this industry, you're going to fail. Like it's not going to work. And so like, don't do that. Like you should try to make a career, do good work. You'll get noticed. Trust me. I think that she was right that's true. But at the same time, as a filmmaker, it does matter to have a following. And I'm not saying a following that, like a cult, but like a following in that there are 2,000 people who like your work and want to see more of it. That matters more today than it's ever mattered before. But it's been true. And the old model was very much, this corporation made this film, or they said this thing. And you see it in like news too, right? It used to be, the New York Times printed this thing. Now it's no, here's a person who I have said, I believe in this person. I trust this person's opinion. So if they're saying it, I'm going to believe it. And that's what YouTube's created. Is like, hey, I follow these creators. If they say it, I'm going to believe it because this person's already been granted my approval of legitimacy. And so I think it's super important for creators to understand, like, and filmmakers, like, I'm not trying to be famous. Like, not at all. Quite frankly, I don't want to be in the camera. But the important thing is that you find that 1,000 person group who likes your work, wants to see more of it. And you see all these people now who are able to make sustainable careers because they have a Patreon where 200 people are giving them, $4 a month. And that's a whole career. I mean, that's your entire, like, you don't need to go get a job then. You can just make YouTube videos. It's the same thing if you're a filmmaker. If you can get 10,000 people to give you $10 a month, you can make a movie every single year for the rest of your life. I mean, that, right? And those are your executive producers. That's doable for the first time ever. And so it's important to be able to have that following and have that, like, relationship.
That's cool. What would you say influenced this film? It reminds me a lot of a specific film, and I'm not going to say it until I hear what your opinion is, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But what would you say are some cinematic influences that maybe inspired you for this particular film?
Yeah, so there's two that we talked about endlessly in pre-production. So the first was the movie Frank. I don't know if you know the movie Frank. Okay, Frank's great. Go watch Frank.
Cool.
I won't say who it stars because that'll kind of give it away. Don't look up who stars in it either.
Okay.
Just watch
Just go watch it. Yeah.
You won't know until the end. Like, that's kind of the mystery. It's like, who is it? Because he wears this big head. That's as indie as you can get. Well, with famous people involved, but whatever. Yeah. So we talked about that, the feeling of it, the rawness, limited locations, limited cast, that whole shebang. And then the other one is Fight Club. Those were kind of the two.
Oh, that's the one I had. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was the one in my head where I was like, and the reason for it is this. It is the thing I really like about the film is that it is a critique on pursuing something that you know is false, and then beginning to believe the lie that you were telling other people of yourself, right? Like, so you fall into the lie in such a way that that you embrace it as if it is true, which is basically what happens in Fight Club as well, right? Like, there's a certain extent to where he's like, this is good, and the person I look up to, who's not a real person, who's just a manufacturer of the person I put in my head. So I like that a lot. I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad that I picked up on it, because it seems like there's a and Fincher is one of the best. So I mean, how can you not love what Fincher's doing? So okay, let me ask you some more questions. Questions that I know that other people want answers to. What was the production budget, and how did you go about finding that budget?
Yeah, great question. So the production budget was $80,000, which for first film, depending on who you are, is either a lot of money or no money at all. My mentors thought it was laughable. They thought I couldn't make a film for it. But a lot of people are like, wow, how lucky, which is fair. I mean, it just depends what, side you're coming from. Right. So 80,000. And then I cold emailed executive producers. I did everything digitally up until I went to LA and I met people. It was 2 individuals, and then it was 1 group who's a VC. They fund like small budget films. They actually ended up reinvesting in me, and they were the ones who funded fully the second movie, which was great. So my recommendation, if you're looking for funds and like first time filmmaker type thing, is you can look up executive producers who have funded other films. Don't do it from someone who invested 10 years ago. It's probably not the best idea, but you can go on WeFunder, look up movies that are being funded there. You can see the top contributors. You can go to those and like them on LinkedIn, send them a personalized email, send them your deck, send them the script, right? I mean, be respectful. Don't just send it all at once, right? Ask if you can send it. But, there are people out there who are willing to take a risk. And, the reality is that these days, depending on how much you're spending, there's ways to make that money back in a reasonable way. And if you're smart, and quite frankly, a lot of those people, they love the cinema, they want to invest. And to some extent, they're also hoping, hey, if I make a micro investment now, maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but maybe he gets a little popular and then he's going to make something in 5 years that I can reinvest in, and that one's going to make $10 million. And so there's the investment, is it's a little bit longer term. And usually they're pretty upfront about that. Usually they're, hey, this is an investment in you now, but I kind of see you're going to be something maybe, and I would like to take a chance on that. So that's how I would go about it. And that's how I, to some extent, still go about it.
I love that. That's really cool. I do a lot of work with tech startups, and it's not dissimilar, to be honest with you. You're looking for money to do a tech startup. It's the same kind of situation. You do the same kind of thing. I mean, I have another friend of mine who made a film. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, to be honest with you. But he made it for $70K, and I'm so impressed at what can be done for under $100K. It's amazing. And another compliment to you is that $80K is basically like, if you go back to like 2018, 2017, that would have been $40K. 40K in that decade is with $80K today because of the inflation we've seen. So that's really, really cool. How many days did you take to film this?
13. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. 13? That's
13.
That's really fast. Cool.
Yeah. And we did some weird scheduling stuff to do that. I recommend, if you're making your first movie for less than 100K, don't do an ensemble cast. Don't be an idiot. I'm an idiot. It really was unnecessarily stressful. But, it's fine. You make it work. And yeah, I don't know. But 13 days is enough. You have to be smart. I don't have ADs on set. I don't like producers on set. And I've learned that the hard way. I don't do that anymore. But I schedule it myself. So I know exactly what we need, how long it's likely to take. I storyboard everything. I have an art background. When I was a child, cool. I went to art academies all over the world. Nice. And so I sketch every single shot out. I make a list of all the shots. I don't really look at it on set. I memorize it before I go out there so that it's all ready in my head, filing cabinet. I know which shots we could cut if we had to, which ones that we need. And then I don't do coverage. I know these shots will work. It's what I need. I'm going to edit it. I edit everything. So I know I have what I need, and that's kind of it. And then the second I have it, I move on. I'm not like Fincher in that way. I don't do 30 take. Right. I can't do that as an indie filmmaker, unfortunately. But
I heard some advice recently, and you're the second person who said it, and I kind of agree with it too. Now, granted, neither you nor I went to film school, so I'd be really fascinated to talk to somebody who went to film school who would disagree with this sentiment. But another person had said this, and I think this person was, I don't know if they went to film school or not, but they said if you think less about coverage and you think more about, no, the shots I need are these shots, then you will save yourself time, and it will be more unique, and your vision for what you're doing will be stronger because you know exactly what you're trying to achieve. And I have personally found that to be very true. I don't shoot for coverage either. I shoot for like, no, this is the story. These are the storyboards. This is what I'm trying to capture. Every once in a while, I'll throw something in to try. Like on the last film we did, Disclosure, it's almost always static shots. There's a couple shots that aren't static, but they're almost always static shots. And that's just because of the type of story I was trying to tell. And just to try and break that, we bought a gimbal to use that because we didn't want to try and do it on a dolly, because we felt like a dolly would be we thought about doing it on a dolly and almost did it on a dolly, but we kind of felt like, you know what, I think handheld would be better. And so, because we were shooting on iPhone, so we just put the iPhone on a gimbal, and we tried that for an hour and went, wow, this sucks. We're not getting anywhere near where we want. So we had a backup plan just in case that failed, and so we used the backup plan. But I like that. I think it would be weird to walk into a film and think to yourself, I think I'm going to shoot this from a lot of different angles because I don't know what's going to work. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying I'm like you. I'm prepped, man. I'm like ready to go. I'm like, these are the shots that I need because this is what tells the story. And if I don't get these shots, then I have maybe backup alternatives that we could do. Like there's one of my favorite shots from No Vacancy is a shot that is we are mostly static for most of No Vacancy. But as the main character starts to unravel a little bit, we start going handheld so that you can feel that she's unraveling. Everything's not quite as stable as it once was. And we do there's one shot we do in just a single take where we're following her around, and it's like one of my favorite shots. Of course, my DP was awesome on that one too, so it was not difficult to even pull it off. Tell me about your style as a director. What have you learned about some of the techniques that you utilize? How do you work with actors? Tell me about what it's like to be a director on your side.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've never been asked about my directing style before. Usually everyone wants to talk about distribution and money and whatnot, which is fine. I like it all. I love getting into this stuff though. So yeah, when I meet, the first thing that I did that was kudos to me, great idea, was that we housed all the actors together. I believe in preparation. I met with everyone in advance. I did Zoom calls. We did like little chats. I had everyone meet each other online before we ever got to set so they could meet and they kind of knew each other a little bit. But because they were housed together, the main 3 actors, they could chat and do lines together at night. I never told them to do that, but they're actors. They want to do that. Yep. And so they would just run over things. And then in the morning, they come to me like, hey, I got an idea. And be like, don't tell me, just do it the first time. I do very few takes. So I believe in prep. They know what they need to do. I have everything in my head. I don't really do the whole notes thing. In neither of my 2 movies do I have someone who's doing script consistency issues or anything like that. So it really does have to be in my head and really kept in line. But I'll let them do what they want to do first. I'll make the notes. I don't do the whole line reading stuff, whatever, but I'll let them do it. And then what's super important to me is 2 things. The first thing that I always do is I watch what happens first. I shoot it. I personally treat it as like preparation. Like we're just walking through it, but I don't tell anyone that. They just do what they're going to do. And then, if it's boring to me, it's boring to you. So if they're standing there, they're sitting there, unless they have to, there's a shot in mine where they're in a church and he's talking to the priest. And he's essentially telling him that he has this great idea that he could be a priest himself. And he could start his own church, which of course is a cult. In that case, all right, they have to sit. They're in the pews, fine. But if we're somewhere else and they're just standing there and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, why are we just standing? I immediately go, okay, maybe you walk over here. Maybe you get in his face. Maybe you poke him really hard. Like, whatever. Like we gotta energize this. It's gotta be more fun. Especially when you're making a low budget film. You watch these low budget films, indie films, and they're boring because no one's doing anything. They hit their marks, shot, coverage, move on. It's like, dude, who cared? Like that doesn't energize me. The frame's boring. You're not doing it. There's no camera movement. There's nothing. You need to have it be exciting, and not just audio, but visuals. Be exciting. And then the second thing I do every time, no matter what, is I ask, I loved it. That's perfect. I have it. We're doing another. If you want to try something or you want to go absolutely crazy. And honestly, what typically happens in, I would say 80% of cases is that we will use that take. And the only time we won't is if they mess it up.
Oh, okay.
But what that does is we have the safe one. We have one that most people would take. But now because you feel that freedom and because you feel like, okay, we have something, like I'm good. They just do that extra step. And sometimes it's things that I wasn't even expecting. So there's a moment where Holston is our lead is just touched a steak because he bit off a steak and he rubs his hand on an actor's shirt. Like he's not talking. No one's talking. He's just rubbing his hand. And it's hilarious. And so I just told him like, dude, do whatever you want. Like walk around. The camera will move with you. You just do something. And that moment was 100% kept in the movie because it's just hilarious. It's the most random thing you can do. Yeah. So I think giving the leeway and the freedom, I'll come up with ideas. I'll say, hey, do this. Hey, what about that? Hey, we could do this. And we'll experiment. And the beauty of coming prepared is that you can allow yourself that time because I know if I'm behind or not. If we're behind on the schedule, yeah, okay, we're going to cut it back. But if we're not, and most days we were ahead. I mean, we had 13 days. We could have shot it in 11. Wow. That's just the reality. We were always ahead every day. There was one day that we went over. And it's because I was green and I didn't realize you had to give people enough time to load out. I just didn't know that was like a thing. So yeah, well, yeah, you learn and you
yeah.
learn and you improve. So
Totally fair.
but yeah, that's kind of my mentality. It's a group effort. I mean, the actors have to be roped in.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So do you get when they do the crazy take, for lack of a better word, do they improv a lot, or do they stick to the script, or like how does that function?
Physically, they improv a ton.
Okay.
And I will tell them that the camera will move with them, not to worry.
Okay.
Typically, the audio, the dialogue is relatively similar, but the way and the inflection points are very different, very drastically different. So maybe it's a sad scene, and maybe it's very low and quiet, and it draws the audience in. And then that last take, they'll start like that. But then, instead of starting to cry, they'll just start laughing. And it's just a weird, twisted, maybe makes no sense at all, but it just allows that take of, that could be really interesting. Yeah. What does that change about the actor in this, or the character in this movie? And sometimes it forced me as an editor to be like, okay, if I take this moment, 20 minutes later, I have to take that moment, because these two things have to now be consistent. And so you then start to play in my head, and I do this every day, of like, okay, well, if I liked that take and that's the one I'm going with, I have to ask her to do a similar maybe take over here, because everything has to make sense.
Yep.
And that's really, as a director, that's your job. People don't realize it. Your job as a director is consistency. Okay. If you're not making sure that's consistent on set, you're failing, because the movie's going to come out and it's going to feel disjointed. It's not going to match. It's not going to feel streamlined. And then you're not going to make a Hollywood movie. You're not going to make something that is a story that doesn't push people out and kind of lose interest in.
That's cool. That's really cool. I love that. I love that as a technique. Where did you shoot this?
I shot all in Pennsylvania, mostly at my mother's house. The barn is my mother's. And then just around town, there was a record store who said yes. They had us come in for free. The bathroom was at pizza place. That's my favorite pizza place. So, people are really nice. You reach out to them, you ask for help, and for the most part, they just find film weird and cool, and they're like, yeah, why not?
Do you still live in Pennsylvania?
I do. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. The reason why I ask is because I live in Colorado, and I got born and raised in California. I didn't move out of California until I was 40. And I think that you when you grow up in California, you actually learn different lessons about what the film industry actually is, to be honest. Like because it's everyone around you is aware of it. Everyone around you there's a lot of people who are trying to be a part of it. Much more so than I would say like in Colorado. It's not that people aren't passionate in California. They definitely are passionate in California, but they also are more aware of they're more aware of how to take advantage of the business aspects of it. You could go to California and ask a pizza place if you can use their bathroom, and they'd be like, sure, for $1,000. One of the things I tell people is I'm up in northern Colorado, and one of the things I tell people is like, up here when we're doing stuff up here, we've had several premieres that have been like a really cool. The Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins has been super supportive of us. They had a big film series that they did with our film and other films. The Visit Fort Collins downtown space, they showed our film there. They have actually a really great setup for short film. It was free, dude. I went to California, and I was like, hey, can I show my film at your place? And it was like, there wasn't a place I found that wasn't going to charge me less than, $1,000 to show the film there. I mean, so it's a very different kind of situation, because in places where the industry is maybe a little bit less developed, they look at it as, hey, this is a way to bring community together. Whereas in California, it's like, well, this is a way to make money. It's just a completely different mindset. So you have to be I like being a filmmaker who's not based in California. Let's just put it that way.
What I will also say too is, if you're a filmmaker and you want to make your first movie, I don't care what that budget is. Okay. If it's under $1 million, which for most people will be, go to Pennsylvania. It is probably the best state in the country. for tax incentives. They will give you a tax incentive of 25% on any budget as long as you're spending 60% in state. And then anything that's in state gets 25%. So
That's awesome.
And they're super helpful. Kevin and Gino, who work in the film office, they want to see your work come there. They want to see Pennsylvania people employed. And so they'll work with you. It's a process like any other, but if you're going to investors and saying, hey, I need $100,000 to make this, part of that pitch deck should be, hey, I can get you 25,000 back, right? Just by working in Pennsylvania. So that should 100% be there. And the other thing too, is like from a career standpoint, I've now made 2 movies in Pennsylvania. I want to do a series in 2026 that would be in Pennsylvania as well. You start to ground yourself and kind of be a part of a network in that state where your crew knows you there.
Right.
There's like businesses that know about you. The kind of like the local populace kind of takes an interest. So they kind of follow your career a little bit. The newspapers might want to write a little thing about you. And so that gets you a little publicity, like all that stuff. And the consistency matters. Like the more consistent of a community you're in, the more power and the more grounded you'll be in that space, that they'll help you kind of get to that next level. Everyone wants to see you there because they want to be at a kitchen table in 10 years talking about how they met you once, because now you're like Shyamalan in Philadelphia, right? And Mike Shyamalan's a god.
Yeah.
Philadelphia. It's because he stayed in Philly and he made everything in Philly, and that's just what it is. So and that doesn't mean you have to be in Pennsylvania. You can do it wherever you are. Colorado is great. It's different. You're going to get different shots there. It's going to look cool. It's going to stand out. Yeah, I recommend it. Don't go to LA. You can go there for business. You can meet people, fly in for work, but I would make stuff outside.
Yeah, I agree. So I really like the way you edited this film. Editing it is in and of itself will make or break a film in many instances. What made you come up with the idea for putting the supers on the screen of this is like step 1 of how you start a cult? How did you kind of work that out in your mind?
Yeah, I love these movies that do things like that. We saw something similar to that with Weapons, right? Where they kind of have the different perspectives, but there's a bunch of movies that do, something similar to that, or some variants of it. I really love when the storytelling is dynamic. It's not mixed media, right? We're not suddenly becoming a music video or something or doing an art piece, but having it be, hey, this is a movie and we can do whatever we want, right? Like it's not even footage. It's not even film. Like you can digitally just do whatever you want, add stuff. And so it becomes part of the story. And there's little Easter egg things in there that no one has seen or bothered to look at. But if you freeze frame on it, there's part of the lesson. It's absurd, right? It's a dark comedy satire. So there's absurd things written underneath each one that are giving you tips on how to do it. But that's the whole, it fits the genre, it fits the piece. For me, it really is, as an editor, you need to really focus on, okay, this is the genre we're going for. This is the expectation of the audience, but then this is how we can exceed that expectation. And you're allowed to be weird as long as it's not jarring in that capacity. This one was a much more traditional edit, I would say, than others. But, so my second one is a very non-traditional editing style, very jarring, very quick cuts to slow, very weird. But it fits the genre, it fits the suspense and the horror, and it kind of gets to it. How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps being dark comedy, comedy. So it's about timing and rhythm and having it kind of be musical in a weird way. So I don't know. I do think this is if you're a filmmaker coming up, you need to edit your own work. It's so important, because when you edit and you learn how to edit, you start thinking in shots and you start thinking in rhythm. And so when you then go to direct, I think the best directors all edit their own stuff. I 100% believe in this. And or they're just heavily involved in it. Because they understand this, most people on set, your sound guys will be why are we even getting this shot? It's no, this shot matters because I know that I'm going to start with this and then bounce out to that and then come back. I need this to be that bounce. You don't get that if you're not an editor. You don't think in the right way.
Yeah, that's cool. Talk to me about your next film a little bit. So it's a very different film you said than this film. What's the budget on that? How did you film that differently? Also filmed in Pennsylvania, I'm assuming. So talk to me about like how that film started to take shape.
Yeah, of course. So the same group that partially invested in the first film, I was in talks with them, and they saw the final product of the first one when it was still festivals and whatever, and they said, "Hey, like we would love to do another one. Let's see if we can find a script." I was actually supposed to do a different project, and then a producer who I was working with at the time allegedly is a horrible person, allegedly, and so he kind of screwed that whole deal up. And then I came in and said, "Listen, I'm 24. I'm super hungry. I want to get another project on the books. I just love filmmaking. I want to advance my career, whatever. So here's a different script. I can do it cheap. I can do it, it can be out the door in a year, right?" And so they loved it immediately. They had some notes, whatever. We fixed it. And then they gave us a budget. It was less than what I would have gotten from them because it was going to be a bigger budget for the other script. But whatever, fine. We got one off the ground. In Pennsylvania, again, PA tax incentives, we got 25% back. Fantastic. And I got to work with the same crew minus a couple people allegedly. And it was really great. I think as a director, if you're a filmmaker these days and you're not in the Netflix orbit, you're not in the studio system, finding the collaborators who are going to be consistently next to you is unbelievably important, and you grow with them. It's much easier in pre-production because you kind of know what their rates are. You kind of know that they're going to say yes as long as they're available. And if they're not, they'll point you in the direction of someone else. And so, and they're reliable, right? Like there's nothing like reliability on a film set. So the team was almost identical to the first one. And actually an extra from How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps, who has one line, he became the star of The Psychic Files, which is
no way.
Jason. So,
do you have similar leads too? Do you use some of the same actors?
Actors, no,
okay.
I didn't, and not for any particular reason. We actually looked at one of the actors from How to Start a Cult for a role, but we ultimately went somewhere else. But Jason tried out and he reached out, and we were looking for someone who was a little bit more physically present. And who could maybe do a stunt or two or kind of throw his body around a little bit. And Jason is that. Jason's he's very, very sturdy, and so he was kind of game to do that. And he, quite frankly, not even game. He wanted to he kept asking me if I could throw him through a table at some point in the movie, and I was like, I don't think that really works with what we're doing, but
hilarious.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome. I really enjoyed your cast. Even some of the supporting roles, like for example, I thought the priest was really good. Like the subtle reactions on his face when he's responding to the lead character saying he's going to start a religion. I'm like a huge fan of performers who can convey a lot without saying a word, just by their facial reaction and their facial expression. And he was really good at that. I was like, that's a really good take there. But the whole cast was really strong. What's your next project? What are you doing after you're done with psychic readings?
Yeah, so I have 2 projects I'm kind of gearing up for 2026. Neither confirmed until we do have, tax incentive kind of pre-approvals for, which is great. Definitely need that. The one that I'm more excited for, I would say, maybe more interesting, is a series. So it's tentatively called The Best Podcast Never. So it's an idea that we would do a 8 episode, 20-minute episode series on YouTube for free, let it out. I want to bring a bunch of collaborators together. So, filmmakers, DPs, whatever, people with personalities on YouTube, and it doesn't have to be massive. We're not looking for million, sub people, but people with a little following. And then, it's just this group of people who want they're running a podcast that's kind of failing, and they need to bring on new guests every week. And those guests are guest stars. They play themselves. And then we interview them like a podcast after the show. So it's a little bit like Seinfeld in that way, where you have intertwined shots. So really, really interested in that. I think it's, it's very easy these days to watch something for free on YouTube and give likes and comments and all that, but it's very hard to monetize that in a way. And so I think finding a way as an indie filmmaker where you can bring the audience high level quality series and TV shows for free on YouTube, but then finding out of that group the smaller group of very passionate, really likes your work, wants to see more, who will do a Patreon account to watch a second half of a podcast episode or see the behind the scenes, or maybe they see a live feed of us filming it and they kind of get like that sneak peek of it. Maybe they get it a week early, right? Like finding that group who kind of helps you fund it, doing merch, and then also just doing advertisements, just like, Netflix runs ads if you have the lower quality Netflix. So finding ways to redo how indie films and series get paid for is something I'm really interested in doing, and something that's more sustainable. You need that early on investment in order to make it, but then being able to pay that off, not based on viewership, but based on a bunch of other metrics, and then having it sustain itself after that is something I'm very passionate about. And, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start documenting that right after the new year. I think I'm going to do a whole, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. Come along, for a ride every week, maybe make a video on like, this is what I did this week. This is who I talked to. This person's now signed on, kind of thing. But we'll see. Maybe it takes off, maybe it doesn't, who knows, but could be really cool. And I think a good way to collab with new people too. Yeah.
A lot of other filmmakers I've been talking to want to do similar things, even in the micro format, which I'm not sure about micro format. I don't think it's for me personally, but I think that there's opportunity there. It's just a matter of how do you unlock that opportunity. Well, we're coming up on about an hour here. Anything else that you want to talk about related to your film or any of the films that you've done?
I'll talk about one more thing just because we did something weird. And so if you made it to the end of this video, what I did is we got distribution offers from a bunch of places. I will not talk about who, but if you're in the indie film space, these names. I promise you, these are not very random distribution companies. These are legitimate companies. And so we turned them all down. If you're an indie filmmaker, it is imperative, if you want a career, to find a way to make your project seen and watched. And we could talk a whole nother hour about this, and maybe we will, maybe sometime in the future. But we are selling directly on our website. We sell merch. We do DVDs. You can rent. You can buy everything through the website. We don't sell it anywhere else. That's what we do. I send 25 to 30 emails a day to podcasts and review accounts and whatever else. And I meet with all these wonderful people, just like you. And so I'm very passionate, and I'm very inspired to try to inspire in others. The idea that you do not need to give your movie over to Tubi, HBO, Netflix, whatever, at a low level, because you will get buried. And at this point in time, it's not going to help your career. Someone named Luke Covert, who's online, he has a little bit of an Instagram following, way more than me, so a bit bigger than me. But he made, I think, what was voted the #1 indie film in 2022. Turbo Cola. Go watch that too. Watch mine, then watch his. But it got buried. And like, we've talked about it, and like we talked about like what he's changing, and he's now making a platform for other indie filmmakers to like, put it on there, because he's like, this is a problem. People are just taking them willy-nilly, and they're losing all that money, and it's not helping their career. They're not getting anywhere. And so that's the reality. Like, that's why we chose to do this, where we said, hey, we're not going to take those deals. And the reality is, like, my friends from home and my mother would have been like, oh my God, my son has a movie on Tubi, or he has a movie on HBO, like whatever it is, right? And it would have looked great. It would have been like, wow, how amazing. But from an actual career standpoint, and from developing a name for yourself, it does nothing. It does not help you. So you need to stand out. You need to find a sustainable way. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. And the jury's still out on if my method works specifically, but I know there's smart people out there who are going to figure it out. Hopefully I'm the one, but who knows? And then that should be something that people should really pay attention to, and really, really focus and try to replicate, because it's the only way moving forward. And I think there's aspects of what I'm doing that are genius and they're going to work and proven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some that are going to fail, and like, that's fine. And I hope to be transparent about that over
Mm-hmm.
the next year or two. But I think people need to wake up and kind of like find that middle ground.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me today. Definitely go give Wes a follow on his YouTube channel. Definitely go watch his film as well. What's the URL for the film?
It's www.howtostartacult in 5-easysteps.com. If you just type in the movie, our SEO is very good. You will find the movie.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. And I'll leave a link down below. I just want to make sure we got that out in the audio too. Cool. Well, thanks, Wes. Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was great, dude. We should chat again in a couple months and talk. I want to talk more about yours. I watch Disclosure and stuff too. I wish I had more time. We could talk about it, but
we will. You let me know when you want to talk about it, and we'll do another show for sure.